Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This evening, it is 6:06 p.m. And again, thank you so much for joining us as we are here to discuss the very important topic, savings, right? You probably hear us as your homeownership counselors, the importance of savings, right? And why why so that's so important while you're going through the home buying process, but even more of so even after the home buying process. Once you're already living in a house, how do you save for any rainy days, right? Anything that just unexpected. So today here we have Miss Maria Cerda with Comerica. She's here to speak on that. She is a banking center manager. So Miss Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. And just want to let you know that this webinar is recorded. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them off in the Q&A or in the chat. I will be monitoring it. But Ms. Maria, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you everyone that has joined this webinar. I think that shows that you're investing in yourself and in those goals. You've got a great resource with Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity and helping achieve those. And here we're going to be covering your savings and how to continue to build and bring yourself closer to those goals. So a little bit about savings. I'm sure everyone has some basic understanding and some knowledge on what that entails, but we're going to be going over 4 sections to kind of give you more information, provide a little bit more detail, and then we will open it up at the end if you have any questions. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you're welcome to put those in the chat and we could cover those at the end as well. So without further ado, thank you for helping me manage the PowerPoint. I apologize, I was having some technical difficulties, but in order to make sure that you're able to view and get the most out of this presentation, then I'm going to have some assistance from my counterpart here. So we can move forward with our next slide. We start with what is savings. You go ahead and move to the next one. But the specific definition is setting aside money every time you get income or saving money on a regular basis, even if it's a small amount. And do remember that every small increment can make a big difference. We recognize savings as paying yourself first. I'm sure that most of you have heard that saying mentioned. A saving is a way to pay yourself first. So we've got bills that are due each and every month. This should be included as one of those bills or debts or liabilities that you have, and it's the responsibility to pay yourself first so that we're planning accordingly, whether it is for that homeownership goal or just setting aside funds for an emergency fund. And we'll go over 4 sections today that kind of cover what a savings is, how to get a savings started, what kind of resources or vehicles you have available in order to set aside funds, and then why those are important. So you can move to the next slide. Again, you can go through number 5. And a couple of different things. It's always important to save money, right? And we think of savings, sometimes we can think of it of couponing or looking for the best deal in town. That may even mean reviewing your utilities, figuring out what am I using, am I paying the right price for those? And those are very important and valid. But in looking to get the best deal, then it's also making sure that if we're spending less money on the things that we need, that we're also saving that money that we're not spending. So it's not saving money on my electric bill in order to spend more on my shopping spree. So it's ideally is analyzing our budget. Where can we save and how much of that savings can we pay ourselves first with? So why save? I think we hear it. It should be ingrained in our brains. It is difficult. We do have to adjust. It's not a said and done. We kind of have to go through the motions and figure out where in my life am I? What is my current position? What's my need? A lot of times, what's my goals? What am I trying to achieve? So am I trying to buy a home? So I'm needing to set funds aside for down payment and closing costs. Am I wanting to build wealth for my family so that I have something to leave, some legacy to leave aside? One that we don't really think about is emergencies. We kind of think things will take care of themselves or nothing will happen to me. But there are those emergencies that on average, you need to set aside, $500 for. Maybe your AC heater goes out, your refrigerator, and those things that you want to have at hand in order to prevent getting in debt if we just simply have a savings plan in place. But times with less income or more expenses, I think that unfortunately we've seen due to the recent pandemic, where a number of people were impacted, their jobs were impacted, there was closures, there was furloughs, and we didn't expect that, and it was very sudden. So it's very important to set funds aside. We typically recommend that you have 2 to 3 months of expenses set aside in the case of an emergency. So whether that's job loss, illness, having those funds aside, and then that will change too based on your current life situation. So a single person versus someone with a family of 3 needs to save differently. Your expenses are going to be different. So as you progress through life and those situations change, then we adjust that savings goal. And then simply for peace of mind, just to know that if I want to pick up tomorrow and buy a plane ticket to fly across town, that I have the ability to do so. It's important, even to getting and keeping a job. There's certain needs, fuel expenses, maybe a tire, maybe career training that a lot of times we have to cover. And so it's having those funds aside just kind of gives you that peace of mind in addition to be able to secure a better job or continue to finance your education. And then many of other reasons, but these are some of the most common based on consumer needs. And that we'll cover a little bit more on how you can do those. So if we can move forward to slide 7. So section 1, key takeaways: setting aside money regularly is important, even if it's a small amount. And I generally, as you was mentioned, I am a banking center manager. So I have been in banking for 18 years now. And I always tell my customers, start small. Even a $5, it's the habit. It's getting consistent with developing that habit, and it's instilling those habits as well. So we start with a small amount. It's important just to start. And then once you assess, okay, have I had to use that money? Can I increase that amount? And then regularly increasing that amount as you see it possible. Next slide, please. So then the option is, where do you build your savings? How do you start that? So it's important. I can make the decision today. Let me start saving, and I'm going to start saving X amount of dollars. But how do I do that? How do I set those funds aside? So here are some options that you can utilize. There are also advantages and disadvantages to consider when choosing where you want to build that savings account. So we'll kind of go through the most common options, what some of those advantages and disadvantages are, and talk through those. So if you want to move through the next slide, we'll start with our first, these are kind of the 5 options we'll be covering: home, family or friend, prepaid card, a rotating savings or credit association, and savings account at your local bank. So we'll start with the first one, which is home. So obviously some of the advantages of you, developed an envelope system and you said, I'm going to every pay period, I'm going to set aside $25 in my envelope, under my mattress, in my pillow, whatever the case may be. Advantages there, obviously there's no rules, there's no fees. It's not going to cost you anything to maintain that. It may be convenient and easy to access. However, some of the disadvantage can be easily lost or stolen. It can be destroyed in the case of a fire or flood. And although, you see that easy access on both sides, easy access means it's easy to get to. So, maybe you see those flashy new pair of shoes and you think, well, that money is in my pillow or under my mattress. Maybe I can get that for me. And so it's harder to keep you away from it or really reason, do I need it or do I want it? So moving on to the next option, family or friends. So we always recommend when starting a saving is have the discussion with, either your significant other, a family member, a friend, and kind of challenge each other. Let's start a savings and how much can we save? What are we going to commit to on a monthly basis? So even trusting in that friend or family member to say, I'm going to, bring you $50 a week and I want you to hold them for me and, let that build there. So obviously there, again, there's no fees, there's no maintenance cost. It may be convenient. It may keep the money away from you. So it's not as easily accessible. However, we've got to consider that on that it can also be lost or stolen or destroyed if, depending on where your friend or family member is keeping them. And it may strain the relationship if one of those things were to happen. So, some things to consider when trusting friends and family. Prepaid cards are often easy to get. They are electronically available. You can add to them either via a direct deposit or making cash deposits. It can be convenient. Again, it's easy to deposit into. Some of the things to consider, however, are disadvantages of those prepaid cards. There are some fees associated with. There can still be, a danger of theft or loss. So it's important to still manage that account to make sure that you're keeping track of it. Some prepaid cards, depending on who issues them, may not have federal deposit insurance. So there still may be some risk of loss to your money, depending on the company and whether or not they stay in business. And it may not be as possible to save or to easily access the money. So if you did have a true emergency and we're needing to get to it, the accessibility may limit the amount you can withdraw at the ATM, and they're not necessarily tied into a location where you could go into and make a withdrawal. And then some of those do have expiration dates, so you have to continue to manage and monitor those accounts. Rotating savings account and credit association, it's committing to a group. So it's, again, like we shared, it's a positive thing to involve others in your savings and kind of get encouragement from them. So this is one that kind of holds you on that accountability. However, some of the advantages are committing to a group and setting a schedule, and I'm going to save money on this schedule. It's you can't easily access the money, so it makes it easier to save, or it adds that advantage. You get a lump sum, so it sets it up to, this schedule is set up for a year, and at the end of the year, depending on how much you contribute, then you get that lump sum money. So if you've got goals that are tied to that, I want to buy a car or I want to buy a home, and I'm going to do it for a year, and that way it's going to allow me to do that. There are, however, some disadvantages. Same thing, you've got to have the confidence and the trust in that group that they're going to be able to manage the funds effectively. And it can be, depending on where they keep the funds, it may or may not necessarily have the federal deposit insurance. And it also requires that all of the members that commit to that group, that they make their deposits on time. So if the group becomes too large, then it's harder to manage the funds, and then there's greater risk involved with it. And lastly, obviously, one that stays close to my heart because it's part of what I do is just a savings account. And it's a savings account with your choice of financial institution. Most financial institutions offer a number of savings accounts depending on your relationship. So it's obviously, the advantages are that the deposits in those accounts are federally insured up to $250,000 by the FDIC insurance. It may be you have different options. So direct deposit, you can walk into a banking center, you can set up direct transfers from your checking account if you have one there. So you may also have the capability to earn interest, so it adds to the money that you're contributing. It's easy to access. If you did have a true emergency, you could go into a banking center, you could transfer online, you could access through an ATM card. So there's a lot of vehicles that can be used, and it helps you establish a banking relationship if you don't already have one. Obviously, disadvantages or things to look for is you want to make sure that if it's costing you to save money based on fees, then you want to make sure that you're set up in the best type of account that's helping you save. So reviewing monthly or any recurring charges. It's not always the best option for savings money for a long term because the interest may be lower. So it is a starting point. It is a starting nest for me to place funds or set funds aside. And it has to be tied to a goal. Once you grow that savings, and it's important that you're looking at other options to make sure you're getting the best rate of return for your money if the money's just sitting there. And then if the financial institution may or may not have available access to online banking if you only have that savings account. So being able to manage the money is important. And then it is federally regulated. Most savings accounts are, where you have only a limited number of withdrawals. So being aware of what is it going to cost me? What are some of the limitations with the account? And what are my best options? So just doing your due diligence and research to finding out what's best going to work for me. But most importantly, finding a vehicle that works for you. And then other places that a number of institutions offer for savings, money market accounts, so as funds start to grow, certificate of deposits, US savings bonds, retirement accounts from your employer, IRA accounts, investments with stocks, corporate bonds, or mutual funds. So again, we talk about, savings account as the starting point, and then these are your options as your money grows, or depending on the goals that you have and when you plan to access those monies. But it's always important, as long as you're saving and you're using one of these vehicles, the idea is to get something started, to commit to it, and to be consistent. And looking for, those, if you are utilizing a financial institution, it's important to take note of whether or not that financial institution is FDIC insured. And if it is, then it covers you up to $250,000. So a little bit on that interest, we talked briefly on the savings account and the rate of return, what you get paid for your money. So we'll talk briefly about interest and how that compounds. So interest is the money that the financial institutions pay you for allowing you for them to hold your money. So it's typically expressed as a percentage rate. And you may need to pay income tax on that interest depending on the amount that you earned throughout that year. And then compounding is just how often do you receive that interest, and is earning interest on the interest that you already have accumulated. So some examples based on the options that we reviewed, and a little bit of perspective of what if I put it in my mattress? So what will that money do for me over 5 and 10 years? So if you keep it under your mattress, there's no interest. We're assuming best case scenarios, not lost or stolen. But if you put $1,000 today, in 5 years, it will be $1,000. If you save it for another 10 years, it would still be just $1,000. But if you put it in an account, in a bank account that's paying, in this example, 2% compounded month over month, then in 5 years, you would have earned $105.08. And over the 10-year period, you would have earned $221.10. And that's just saying you put it, one deposit didn't add anything to it. The overall interest combined with regular savings, if you're saving $5 per month. And again, the comparison on keeping it under the mattress versus keeping it in the bank account. So you can see there on year one, $60, you would have accumulated $60 under your mattress over a 12-month period. In the bank account, you would have gotten an additional 55 cents for that money. And then you can look through those examples all the way up to 30 years. So we're $5 a month over the course of 12 months, and then over the 30 years, you would have earned $1,800 under your mattress, or in the bank account, $2,463. So over $1,400 that's accumulated under the interest over the month-to-month period. So obviously, it's being cognizant of what benefits does my vehicle I'm using to save have for me, and how can I benefit the most. So typically for most accounts, if you're dealing with a financial institution, the rate of return or annual percentage yield will be expressed in that way as an APY, or annual percentage yield. And it reflects the amount of interest on a yearly basis. So it's different from the interest rate because that's compounded monthly, and includes the effect of the compounding over the full year. So the more often your money compounds, the higher your annual percentage yield is, and the more interest that you will earn on the money that you have on deposit. So always when you're looking at different vehicles to use and comparing from one institution to another, always compare the annual percentage yield, not the interest rate. And then the rule of 72, if you haven't heard it, we'll kind of go through it, give you a quick example. But it's a formula that estimates how long it'll take your money to double in value. And you simply do that by dividing 72 by the interest that you're receiving on that particular account. So the result is estimating the number of years to double the money, assuming that there's no change in the interest rate, and that you haven't made any additional deposits or withdrawals. So here's your example. If you had $50 in a savings account with a 2% interest, again, no change in interest, no additional deposits, then the rule 72 tells us that we take 72, we divide that by 2 because that's our interest rate, and that equals 36. That means it would take you 36 years for $50 to double to $100. So again, why it's important to manage and monitor the accounts to make sure that we're contributing and taking advantage of the best rate. And then same thing, you'll see in example number 2, what interest rate would double your money in 10 years? So when you're looking for that best option, what kind of interest, if I want to double my money, what will it take in order for me to get there? So you do the same thing, you divide, take 72 divided by 10, which is the number of years, that's our goal. And that gives you 0.072 or 7.2 annual percentage yield. So you would need to earn that interest rate in order to double your money in 10 years. So that ends our section 2. Just remember, key takeaways is always considering what advantages and disadvantages you have before choosing where to build the savings account. So it's a matter of making the decision, making sure you've got all the pros and cons to that vehicle, and then starting that savings account. So section 3 will cover saving for unexpected expenses and what are some of the things that we need to prepare for. So this would fall under that emergency fund, what kind of things constitute and what we recommend just based on your scenario. So the main takeaway is just making sure that you have a good financial health, that we're looking at that and setting at least, $500 to $1,000 in with the idea that it'll cover those unexpected expenses, because it would be great if we could plan for emergencies, but unfortunately those most of the time come unplanned. So why save? And it's very simple, because life happens and we can't predict it. And those events do occur, and we're not going to be able to kind of put a timeline to it. So we can't say, oh, I think my car is going to break down unexpectedly in 6 months, but we can prepare in the case that something like that does happen. So just showing the emergency savings fund goal is what are some of the things that would create, and it's covering those unexpected expenses, making the money that you saved work for you so that you can avoid creating debt and in turn, hindering your savings goal. It does take time and commitment. It's setting down and budgeting and determining how much money do I have available. And then it's making sure that we're recommitting to it. So we save up $1,000 and that has to be set aside to, replace our appliances. Then it's starting over again and recommitting to grow that savings fund again. It is absolutely worth doing it. I think it'll reduce your stress and it'll save from any headaches. And then it's also important to improve the financial health and stability. If you know that those funds are set aside, then it's easier for you to make those goals and kind of set aside for the next step in your future. So we talked about life changing and stages in your life, and how, from being single to being married with kids or wanting to travel, that all of those things will impact how you save. So some of the things to consider is your income and expenses can change. So whether you're taking in more expenses because you've just added in a mortgage to your monthly debt, whether your income has changed because maybe you've added a new baby and you've gone from full-time to part-time to accommodate that. Or you may have bills that you only pay once a month or every few times per year. For example, electric bills in the winter and the summer, there's specific months that those may be higher. So planning for those things, planning that those things will change and that you'll have to adjust for it. And then your spending can increase temporarily. I know, and it's very common over the November, December years of the month that spending increases due to holidays. So it's being able to prepare for that, setting up that holiday spending account so that that money's already set aside. It's not taken away from anything that will help you pay those necessities like the bills. So some key takeaways, emergency fund is, it's a foundation, it's setting aside, it's creating a goal, it's thinking back to, where have there been times that we had something unexpected hit, and that 500 to 1,000 is just a starting point. It really is going to depend on your personal situation, but setting a goal and then working towards that. But the most important thing is making sure that that's part of your foundation and that it's included in your monthly expenses as how much am I going to set aside. And then our last section, which will cover saving for your goals. And that comes with creating a plan to save money for your goals. A lot of times we can talk about these are the things that we want to do, but how do we create and how do we turn those hopes into dreams into reality? So what do you want out of life? Where do you see yourself? I know a lot of the participants in this class are looking to become homeowners. So how, what is keeping me from reaching that goal? And I mean, some of the things that we can pinpoint with homeownership is, do we have down payment available? Do we have funds for closing costs set aside? And have we analyzed what is that cost associated with? What do I have now? And what do I need to do on a month-to-month basis to get to where I need to do? And then, with your family, what are some things that are happening? I have a daughter in high school, so we've been planning for college. We know that that's in a near future now. So it's making sure that we are set up for that next step. And so with that is being able to set a specific goal, and an acronym, if you're not familiar with it, SMART goals. It's something specific, what am I going to do? So in this example, I will save $10. Is it measurable? How am I going to do that? I'm going to save $10 for the next 6 months. And then action oriented, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? On this example, I'm going to get cash from the bank ATM rather than a non-bank ATMs to save me fees. And is it reachable? Is it something that I can really commit to doing it? So this, a lot of times I can say I want to save $20,000 in 2 months, but is it achievable? Can I save 10,000, 1,000? What's an achievable goal that I can commit to? And then what's my time bound? Give yourself a deadline. When do I want to complete this, and break it down? If I want to have $1,000 saved up at the end of the year, what does that mean to me on a month-to-month or weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how I get paid? So it's important to make it very specific, to make it easy for you to measure, to have the action as how am I going to do this? To make it reasonable and reachable, and then to set a deadline. When do I want to achieve this with? Because then you can hold yourself accountable. If it's, I've said for by the end of the year, I want to save $1,000. Well, we're getting to be into April. Where am I at with that savings? What progress have I made? Maybe I had some setbacks, so I have to go back and redraw the plan. I wasn't able to save last month, so it means I'm going to increase my savings this month. So it's just making sure that you've got a plan, sharing it. It's important. And that way you can have someone else hold you accountable and kind of check in on you. How are you doing with your savings? Were you able to set that aside? But in making it actionable and making it reachable is very important. And then just things to make it more likely for you to achieve your goals. Make sure you write them down, you post them, you share them. That you're focused. I don't know if you have heard of vision boards, but a lot of people use vision boards, whether it's on your phone, they offer apps, or creating a vision board and posting it on your refrigerator on your way out the door. So you're constantly reminded of these are the things that I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. To continue to keep yourself motivated. And then understanding that there may be setbacks, but I still have that goal and I'm going to continue to focus them, and sharing them with those that are going to positively influence you and help you getting closer to that. And so, the question is, how much money should you save for your goals? And that really is going to depend on the situation and the goal. It's determining what I'm saving for. What specific, is it emergencies? Is it home ownership? Is it a new car? Is it a vacation? Because all of those will have a different dollar tag to it. How much will it cost? And then how much of that cost do I need to save? Is there any financing available? Is there any discounts? And then what's my deadline? When do I want to be able to do that? So you want to take that money needed divided by the time that you have to save. So for example, on the emergency fund, if we want to start there, I want to save $1,000 over a 2-year period. So what does that look like? I'm going to take $1,000 divided by 100, because 50 weeks times 2 is 2 years. And then we need to save $10 a week. After 2 years, you'll have $1,040 saved up in your account. So it's taking it, getting the big picture and breaking it up into smaller increments with small steps into reaching that goal. So a lot of times we're overwhelmed by $1,000. How am I going to save that? I don't have $1,000 today, but do you have $10 that you can start with? And I think for a lot of us, we can make some changes to make that achievable. Some reasons, some large expenses that we've kind of touched on. Goals are related to expenses. You can think of something I want or something I need, and that's how we trigger our goals. But the large expenses, generally require more than the money you have left over after your paycheck. So if you budget and you look at, well, I have, $1,000 in expenses and my, income is $2,000 a month. Well, that only leaves me with $1,000 for savings or to replace something. But it's the continual effort of combining that and continuing to work through that will ensure that you've got money already set aside for those large expenses so that it doesn't impact your ability to pay those expenses on a month-to-month basis. So key takeaways: plan for your money goals. It's important we plan, it's important we have a discussion, it's important we involve our significant other, our family members, so that they understand what you're working towards and you've got their buy-in on helping you achieve that. So some action items, some homework for us to do. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And will I share my plans with anyone? And who would I share those with? Again, just making sure that you're holding yourself accountable and you've got someone that can motivate you and hold yourself accountable too. This link that we've shared here is great financial education that covers the ability for savings, retirement, how to manage credit, that I highly encourage. A lot of times is I'm a mother myself, I have family, and it's including them in those financial decisions. They may not be able to fully understand it, but it's engraving in them the need for good financial health and sharing that knowledge that's going to better set them up for their future. So with that brings us to the end of our presentation. I am open for any questions. I'm glad to hang out with y'all. If you have any other information that you'd like for me to cover or any questions regarding the materials that we've just discussed.
All right, everyone. What questions do you have about savings? We have Ms. Maria here that she can answer. She was great, huh? Yeah. All right. So if you don't have any questions, tell me of a SMART goal of yours that you have. It has to be SMART. So what is the definition of SMART? Anyone? Anyone? I'm going to start calling some people out. That's what I like to do. Okay. So your SMART goal has to be specific, right? Has to be measurable. You have to be able to attain it, realistic, and then time bound. All right, so Miss Elena said, save every paycheck. Okay, we have part of a SMART goal.
Mm-hmm.
So
how much?
How much are you going to save out of your paycheck?
That's a great start.
Yes. All right, save $52 out of your paycheck. Okay. So we have time bound by weekly. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so save $52 weekly for your paycheck. Okay?
How will you do it?
And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have, is that whenever we set up savings, is that we don't follow the SMART goal type of ideology, right? We say like, okay, yes, I'm going to save, but then like Miss Maria said, like, how will you do it, right? Yes, you want to save $52 weekly, but how, right? So yeah, so let's all put something in there. Okay, so Ms. Maribel said, open up a savings account instead of a savings cash. Okay.
Mhm.
How is your, so that's your SMART goal? Yes, Ms. Elena, put in a specific savings account. Awesome.
And then setting
Anyone
up that goal. So if the idea is to save, like we had a participant mention $52, what's the goal? What's the dollar amount you're trying to reach? Because I think that will encourage you in seeing, okay, I've saved it. Where is my progress? Because you want to be able to measure the progress. That's part of it. So setting a deadline to it. How much do I want to save? How am I going to save it? And by when do I want to save it?
Right. You want to add two more to your goal, Miss Elena? So we said save $52 every week in a savings account. Or how long are we going to save that? Or for how much? Like, how much do you want to save?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, just think about this. Like, if you don't have a goal towards like what you're saving, it's just a wish now, right? So you have to envision what you're saving forward. If that's like Ms. Maria mentioned, if that's home ownership, you know, for closing costs, down payment, if that's for a car, right? You want to put a down payment on a car or buy a cash car, you know, you want to set that vision for it, right? You want to set that goal. Otherwise, it's like you're just wishing, right? And if you're just wishing, like, yeah, I don't feel like saving this week, or I don't feel like saving this month, right? Oh, I'm not able to save this week. I'm not able to save this month, because you don't have that, you know, that vision that you want to have. There you go. That's a good one. That's an ambition goal, which I love it. It says, I would like to save $50,000 a year by saving $52 every week in a savings account. That's a SMART goal.
Perfect.
So now she has, it's attainable, right? It's also measurable because we're going to $5,000. And then she knows what she needs to do, save $52 weekly, right? So great job. Anyone else? I'm gonna start calling some people out again. Ms. Dietra, come on, I want to hear from you. And I can put, let me see, I can put you, I can remove you, and let's see. Could I allow you to talk? Yes, I can allow you to talk, Ms. Dietra. All right, Ms. Dietra, let us know. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Let's see. Did I scare her away? All right, allowed to talk. There you go, Ms. Dietra. You should be able to speak.
Hi, my name is Deidre. Hi,
Hey, Ms.
everybody.
Dietra.
Basically, what I've done is over my overall goal was to save as much as I can save, right? I'm looking at over the course of since September, I've basically put away almost 7,000. And I did that by just taking a substantial amount because I went to a position to where I could put more money back for my house. So I downsized a lot so that I can make that goal happen. Because my thing was, I've always heard every class save, save, save. And so in order to do that, I downsized quite a bit. And then it's just like every little bit I have extra, I put into a separate account. It's not attached to the bills or anything. It's kind of like the envelope situation, but it's in a separate account just for my house.
Okay, so you had a vision, correct? You're saving for, what was that?
My home.
For your house, exactly. So she had so her goals were specific, or SMART goal was because she was overall saving towards a house as much as she could save. You know, right now she mentioned that she's at $7,000. So congratulations on that. You know, that's way to go. Yeah. Yes, congratulations. Victoria said congratulations, Ms. White. All right. You. Anyone else? Yes, thank you, Ms. Teacher. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
Say Vincent, tell Vincent I say hi.
Hey, Porfirio.
Hey, Vincent, you're there.
Yes, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Good hearing you. Good hearing you. We were wondering if you all actually listened to the to our presentations, Vincent.
Yeah, when she's there, I'm there.
Okay, good to hear.
Teamwork.
Yes.
Teamwork. Yeah,
Yes.
again, yes, like listen, Miss Maria was saying, especially whenever you have to do with financing, you want to involve your significant other and your family, right?
Mhm.
It's a household goal. It's not just your goal, especially if you're going to be cutting down on expenses. You know, you want to be able to involve everyone because you don't want that way they know exactly why you're doing it for. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Teacher.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else who has a goal, a smart goal that they can share with us? Let us hear it. We might, if you don't have a smart goal right now, let's put a goal right now, and then we can work towards that. Like we can ask you the questions and get it to where like Miss Elena made it to where it's now a smart goal, which is specific, time bound, attainable, measurable, and realistic. Okay, so anyone else? All right, let me call someone else then. All right, Miss Maribel, I was just saying, I was doing the same thing as Miss Sidra. At first, there was no goal, just save. But now my goal is for home ownership. I've been able to save 1,000 a month, and it's going great. Awesome. So, how are you saving your $1,000, Miss Maribel? So we have why you're saving it. We know that you are saving as much as possible, but what does that mean? Like, how much at least? What is the very minimum that you're trying to save? Every paycheck or every. I know it's at month, but I mean, what is the least amount of money that you want to save? Or Alicia's texting, or typing. But Miss Mara, what she does, yes. So by putting them in a savings account and I get paid monthly, I want to save at least 20K. Wow, that is very good. Especially with this market, you will need that. So yes, halfway there. Yes, congratulations.
Awesome.
Yes. You see, again, it is like if you have to have that goal where you know what you're saving for. She won't know that she wants to save $20,000 for home ownership, maybe for closing cost down payment. So she knows that why she's saving it, right? And it is realistic. If she's able to do it, then it is realistic, right? If she's already been able to save $1,000, then what ways can you cut down? Okay. Ms. Teacher said that we started with the 5-20-30 plan, an extra from there. Good. That's a good plan, right? So Ms. Maria, are you familiar with the 50-20-30 plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
right. Do you want to?
again, it's so anything that works for you. Everyone's situation will be different, but it is as long as you've got a plan in place and you understand how am I going to put it in place and how am I going to stick to that plan. So it's great.
Yeah. Do you mind explaining what the 50-20-30 plan means? All right. Well, Ms. Maria comes back. So basically the 50-30 plan is that, you're going to take 50 for your everyday expenses. You're going to save 20 for just savings and then 30 to pay any debt off. So that's what that means. But of course, in home ownership, we like to switch it around, especially the 20-30, where you can save 30% of your income and only spend 20% for debt to pay off. Okay, so that's what we like to flip it around on whenever it comes to home ownership. But like I said, Ms. Maria mentions like anything that works for you. Okay.
I'm sorry. Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Yes, I was just explaining the 50-20-30 rule.
And it's that needs over wants. Do I want it or do I need it? And then how can it serve the purpose? And having that breakdown helps, because if you allocate a specific area for what you make for that income, then it helps. Now, how much do I need? How much do I want? And then what is that goal attached to?
Exactly. Now, Ms. Maria, before we let you go, will you please explain us I know that you touch base on the different types of savings methods, like we start with the savings account, then we can go to the CD or money market account. Will you please go more into detail what each account, what each of those accounts does and how they differ from each other?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Savings account is your basic, every bank account will have like a basic savings account option. Typically they offer like the lower minimum balances, the lower monthly maintenance fees, and it's just to allow you the ability to start setting funds aside without worrying to having to pay fees on that account. As your money grows, then you should be looking for other vehicles. So, and identifying what the purpose of the funds are, what the term is, when do I anticipate to need these funds? Are they earmarked for anything specifically? Will help you determine what you want to move into next. So money market account typically offers a higher rate of return. And with that, it will also require higher balances. So it's just making sure I'm not just going to go into a money market if it's going to cost me money and it's going to offset my interest rate. But ideally, those money markets, it means I've accrued a balance in that account. I'm going to continue to add to it. So I want to take advantage of a better rate of return, but I want to keep my money liquid. If I want to walk into the bank tomorrow, I still have the ability to do so. And then the next step to that is I want to, I'm thinking of buying a car. I'm thinking of buying a home. I have X amount of funds set aside, and I want to even take advantage of better rates. And it's setting funds aside to what we call a term deposit or a CD account. So where you specifically say, I want to set aside $10,000 for the next 6 months, and you're committed to a contract. Though that money is going to stay in that account for the next 6 months, is going to earn X amount of interest that generally would be better than a savings or a money market account. And it's tied to that contract. So you're not able to make additional deposits or withdrawals to that account until that term ends, or you would be forfeiting some of the interest that you would have accumulated in that account. So obviously it's tied, a lot of those and how you decide to use them are going to be tied to interest rate. The other option that you would have would be US savings bonds. We do have there are some attractive rates out there based on inflation right now, but those are also tied to a commitment. There's some certain limitations as to how much you can buy. And then depending on the type of bonds, what the interest rate or rate of return on those are. But those are different vehicles. If you want to say, I want to set some money aside for my grandkids or for my kids, that's a vehicle to use that specifically separates some funds into that bond. Retirement accounts, I'm a fan of 401ks and IRA accounts because it's setting aside funds for when I'm not able to work like I work now. And it's being able to take care of ourselves in that aspect. And there's some additional tax benefits in contributing to a 401k account. In addition to, a lot of employers will also make contributions for you. And for those that are looking to become homeowners, there's some accessibility to that if funds are used specifically for the purchase of your first home. So you've set funds aside, you've got some tax benefits for it, and you can use it for those large ticket transactions like home buying. But more importantly, they're set aside for your retirement, and it's helping you set money aside where you don't use it. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, but it's building for you. Lastly, the investments such as stocks, bonds, corporate funds, and mutual funds can be done through any investment company. If you have a relationship with your bank, most will offer those financial services as well. But it's, again, looking for, this is the money that I have set aside. This is the goals that I have for it. This is when I plan to use it. And right now, I just want to make sure that my money is working for me, and looking for those other alternative options that are going to offer you a better rate of return.
Thank you.
I hope
Great
that
explanation.
answered your question.
No, thank you. So great
Perfect.
explanation. I think everyone was taking notes on that, because there is a difference. But like I said, let's start off with at least having a savings account. Like
Correct.
you said, like she was mentioning, like out of sight, out of mind, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we are trying to, I guess, get through this webinar, is that, whenever you think about saving, is pay yourself first, right? So what does that mean? Is that before you make any payment on anything else, You know, if you said that you're going to save $52 every week, you know, get your $52 into that savings account before you make any other payments. Okay. Because again, and it's creating that habit, right? Because once you already know that you're going to do that, it's going to continue. And not just right now that you're in the home buying process or, you know, thinking about it, you know, for rainy days, you know, it's good to have all that. So thank you so much, Maria, for bringing us such a good webinar today. And thank you all the participants that have joined us. And just know that this webinar was recorded. In the case that you would like to go back and review it again, it is on our website. And then share it with friends and family.